Hey guys, Ramsey here. Welcome to another video. Today we have a late night insight on a video that has been heavily requested by my subscribers. Specifically, Matt, this is for you, brother. I know that this is a fragrance that has gotten a lot of hype in Fragcom, a lot of hype. And I've had a chance to wear it to bed a couple times. This is sort of the second time of me wearing it to bed. So I have a little experience with it, but this is still an initial impression. It's a late night insight video, so keep that in mind whenever I do this video. I have not drained an entire bottle or anything like that. I'm no expert on the scent, but this is a fragrance that I would consider a hype beast, and it's from the house of Thomas de Monaco, and this is called Raw Gold. So thank you very much to the very kind benefactor who sent me a couple drops. Can't remember if he wanted to remain anonymous or not. So to my perfume god people, I very much appreciate you sending this along so I can do these type of videos. So Thomas de Monaco Raw Gold came out in the year 2020, and I'm going to read you a little blurb from a couple places. But first, let's talk about the house Thomas de Monaco themselves, because it's a new house to me. This is actually the very first time I had ever heard of the house. I own no bottles in my collection from the house. And it says, for over 20 years, Thomas de Monaco has been living and working as a creative director and photographer between Paris and Zurich, working for international clients in the premium and luxury industries: Hermes, Dior, YSL, Armani, Moet & Chandon, Hennessy, Rolex, Cartier, to name a few. In December 2020, after more than 3 years of development, he presented Raw Gold, his first fragrance, as an initial limited edition with 1,400 flacons, and that's it. The eau de parfum has been the subject of considerable discussion and has found a place in the hearts of collectors and connoisseurs. In 2022, he launched his second limited edition collection, consisting of Au Coeur in September and Grand Beau in November. Never smelled either of those. Both scents are intensely radiant and long-lasting, deliberately designed for effect, with a positive and winning quality made with beautiful raw materials and contemporary molecules. So, there goes on to say a little bit more about how they're designed with freedom in creation and a heritage full of artistic independence, poetic, emotional, and authentic, intended for sustainable luxury. Okay, so that's sort of the story of the house of Thomas de Monaco. For those of you that don't know, I never knew. Let me read you a little blurb from Lucky Scent, what they have to say about Raw Gold. And then we'll get sort of my take on it. And so here's what they say. Raw Gold is a fragrance with an unmistakable character, with a top note that unfolds intensely and demandingly. I'll agree with that. A combination of seemingly sweet liqueur, intense coffee, smoky vetiver, and black pepper. The heart is presented with a daring impression of lipstick and the warm notes of a texture of leather and suede. The base is a journey through balsamic notes with tonka beans for the masculine animal warmth from civet and patchouli, enhanced with the exotic notes of a papanax for a hint of dark honey. The maturing process for Raw Gold took 3 years, but this is the only way that more than 60 ingredients and a patchouli that has been stored dry for over 20 years can develop properly. The 3-year time frame, I'm guessing, and I'm just talking out loud here, but I'm guessing that the 3-year time frame is because that's about how long it takes when you put orris roots away to basically sit so that they can be turned into orris butter. It usually takes about 3 years or so. And so my guess is that that's where the 3-year number came from. No other ingredients need to sit for 3 years, really, except for orris. It says, not a simple fragrance, rather a statement of maturity and depth, worn in the evening with an awareness of the effect for her and him, with a bottle that caresses the hand and does not want to compete with the content. Discreetly presented with a simple packaging made of recycled cotton, contemporary and sustainable, Raw Gold is a modern eau de parfum with a gentle touch of romance and sincere sensuality. 50 mils is $300. And again, there's only 1,400 bottles for the entire world, is what they say. It's still available on Lucky Scent, so if that's true, that means they haven't even sold 1,400 bottles. And they individually number each bottle, which is kind of cool. I know my buddy Jonathan got, for his birthday, the bottle with the age he was turning engraved on the bottle. Very cool. Let's talk about raw gold and my take on it. So it opens up basically when I first sprayed this the very first time. I actually was afraid. Okay, I was scared. I was actually a little upset because when I first sprayed it, I was like, oh my God, this is a very, very sweet pepper cinnamon blend with what feels like tobacco in a way that worried me at first. Literally almost worried me because this fragrance got so much hype and I was like, here we go. Another fragrance that is hype that I don't like. And but I didn't give up on it. I gave it a chance. I gave it another chance, wore it again. And the opening is just what it is. I mean, I just have to say that if you don't like sweet fragrances like me, you will struggle with the opening of this. There's a fragrance it reminds me of that I'll tell you about here when you first spray. The opening of the fragrances I feel are very similar to each other, and then they go in completely different directions. I'll show you that one here in a little bit. But because of the sweetness, and I thought it was going to just be way too sweet for me. Like, I couldn't handle it at all. But the fragrance course corrects. Very luckily, it does a course correct in a quick, heavy course correct, okay? So what that means is there's a big transition in this fragrance, and then it transitions again. There's multiple transitions within the first hour of this fragrance, and they're beautiful. And those transitions are what really captured my attention. It takes some serious skill and attention to detail to have a fragrance that transitions 3 times within the first hour of the fragrance. To my nose, anyways, there are multiple changes that take the fragrance in one direction to another to another. And from the first spray to where it ends up by the end of hour 1 is a hell of a journey, I'll tell you that. So even though the sweetness bothers me, and it does, and it does still to this, when even right now when I'm smelling the 2-hour dry down, still the sweetness bothers me. I can't get away from it. But it does subside over time. So that is something to keep in mind. And so what ends up happening with this fragrance is it course corrects, and many of the higher class materials and the skill in creating the fragrance begin to come out. And so what happens for me is what I would call this, there's no other way for me to put it, but a green iris comes out to my nose. So the very first time I smelled this, I smelled it without the help of notes and seeing what notes were there. And the notes that I actually made, not the notes that the brand gives, which I will read to you in just a second. Excuse me, but the notes that I actually took, I wrote sort of this green smelling iris begins to appear. That's where my interest began to get piqued, because even though it has this very juvenile, cheap smelling opening, and I mean the first minute or two, right? That green iris comes in like Superman and saves the day. And the green iris has almost this vegetal iris feel. And it is absolutely stunning, beautiful, gorgeous iris comes forth. And once that green iris sort of comes in, it brings with it a little bit of this powdery facet, but equally green aspects, okay? So I want you to imagine a very green smelling iris, almost like a fresh iris. Imagine if you took the actual flower itself, which has, is basically useless in the creation of iris. It's the root that makes the iris. And you cut into the stem, and let's say you cut into the stem of the flower and you got that sort of green stem feel, right? And then you blended that green stem with the iris. That's what the iris begins to feel like when it first enters the fragrance's point of view, when it first comes to your nose within the first couple minutes, let's say. And it's extremely green, but it does start to show that powdery cosmetic side, which Thomas de Monaco says is a lipstick note, and we'll talk about that later on as well. But what happens to this iris that really is mind-blowing to me is probably by the 15 to 20 minute mark is there is a transition to my nose that sort of takes place. And what ends up happening is 15 to 20 minutes in, the fragrance almost completely transforms itself in this very, cinnamony, sweet, green iris fragrance that it was for the first 15 minutes, begins to turn into this chocolatey, salty, chocolatey iris fragrance to my nose. That reminds me, the salty, chocolatey side actually reminds me a little bit of Les Abstraits Bel Homme in the way that the chocolatey iris begins to be used. But those are two completely different fragrances. So it's just in the way that the chocolate iris sort of presents itself where I'm reminded a little bit of Bel Homme. And I can tell you that in the first 15 to 20 minutes of wearing this fragrance, both times I wore it, I had the exact same feeling. There are two things that I have no doubt about when it comes to this fragrance. Number one is that almost certainly this is one impressive fragrance with extremely high quality ingredients. There is no doubt about that. It cannot be, I don't think that can be sort of argued, if you will. The materials are extremely high quality, and the transitions and the way that everything is blended together and the way that the perfumer put the fragrance together feels extremely well executed. Like they had a plan, they stuck to the plan, they executed the plan, and it obviously works brilliantly. I mean, you can see the hype for this fragrance, right? Although I figured they would have sold more than 1,400 bottles by now, but hey, I mean, maybe they're just a smaller brand, and what they have sold so far is good enough. Now, one thing I do notice is Lucky Scent has the released year as 2022, and I thought this was a 2020 release, so I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, their website says that, and even Parfumo shows 2020, so I think Lucky Scent has it wrong when it comes to raw gold. Anyways, just something I just noticed all of a sudden. So, the second thing I noticed with the fragrance is that one thing that I just could not avoid, no matter how much I tried to get my nose to focus on the beautiful green iris, in let's say the first 15 minutes, or the transition to more of the chocolatey iris, or maybe that liqueured coffee in the top, which they say is there, and I kept trying to get, and I really didn't get much of it. Or maybe I am getting it, and I just am not picking it up. My brain isn't registering it as liqueur and coffee or something like that. But one thing that I just, no matter where I tried to focus, and there's a lot of beautiful things to focus in this fragrance, and that's another pro, you could say, because you can really almost take your brain and instruct your nose to focus on this or that, and you can, and that's a sign of a good quality scent, being able to just pick out a note at will like that. But one thing I could not get myself to do is get away from the sweetness. The sweetness was absolutely killing me. And instantly, I basically knew that I just, as much as I like the scent, and I do like it, I just could not force myself to sit through an hour or two of dry down before we get to the more of the base, where the leather, the patchouli, that cigar note begins to come out more, the woods start to come out more. There's some civet that makes it slightly animalic, but they've used the tiniest amount of civet, I think, just to add a little, just to add a little character, let's say, to the scent, okay? So, but one thing that is almost evident immediately that I never changed my mind on is the fragrance is too sweet for me. It just is. If you do not like sweet fragrances, be very, very careful with this one. The sweetness here is unabashedly sweet, let's say, okay? So, that's just something I don't know if I'll ever be able to handle enough to where I'll want to go spend $300 on a bottle. If a bottle fell in my lap for $100, would I go for it? Maybe. Probably. But $300 for 50 mil, that sweetness is going to be tough for me to overcome. So, as the hours tick by, slowly, ever so slowly, okay? Slowly is the key word here. The sweetness does the airplane land. Comes in, slowly approaches the runway, and the level of the sweetness just slowly dips, ever so slowly. And the more sweetness sort of burns off of this fragrance, the more I like it, more and more and more. But God, sitting through that first hour or two, I will say it's a tough tale. It's a tall tale for me to do. Um, and it's a tall order. I mean, I don't know if I'll ever be able to force myself to sit through the sweetness to where I'll be able to truly enjoy this like some of you folks do. So, a few things of note, okay? I do get the iris note. Obviously, it's a big part of the perfume, in my opinion. But one thing people kept asking me about over and over in the comments, people would ask me about this lipstick accord. And is there truly a lipstick note in it, or is it just marketing? Okay. And here's the thing. So honestly, when it comes to the lipstick note, what they're really talking about is that iris can sometimes give off this sort of cosmetic-like feel, okay? So if you've ever smelled, just as an example, if you've ever smelled the iris note in the very popular Dior Homme Intense, okay? This is sort of like the poster child for lipsticky iris. Oh, it's beautiful. Oh, it really is beautiful. And so when I think of lipsticky iris, this is one of the poster childs. And when I smelled raw gold before, the first time I sprayed it, before I knew the note listing, I picked up the iris, but I noticed it was slightly cosmetic, but I wouldn't have marked it as a lipstick note, in my personal opinion. So basically, iris gives off this very delicate, beautiful, powdery, violety, almost, like I said, cosmetic-y smell. Imagine a woman powdering her nose with that thing, that little thing that goes into the powder, and they put, I have no clue what that thing is called. The women out there are probably laughing, but whatever that applicator, I don't know what the hell it's called. But imagine you're powdering your nose and the woman is holding a newborn baby, okay? Holding a newborn baby, powdering her nose. And the reason I say that is because some people say that a good representation of what iris smells like is the head of a newborn baby. There are many scientific studies you can read about that say that whenever a mother is holding her infant child and she's holding it to either breastfeed or just, burping it or whatever it is, but anytime the head gets around the nose region of the mother, it gives off an aura of calm. Just smelling her newborn baby's head makes the woman almost very at peace, That's the smell of iris. It's a very heavenly, peaceful, almost something you would associate with like the Almighty. It's that kind of note. It's one of my favorite notes in perfumery. And I have been very lucky to smell the real thing. And when you have very high ions, they're absolutely beautiful. One of the most amazing smells that I've ever smelled. And so it basically has this very delicate smell, is the point. And it's one of the most complex and beautiful notes in perfumery to me. And so, like I said, if you've smelled Dior Homme, you have an idea of what that cosmetic bag iris sort of smells like. Dior Homme Intense specifically. But there's a reference lipstick scent to me, and they actually, in this scent, they actually don't even list iris as a note, but they do list violet, okay? And that is Lipstick Rose. If you want my recommendation on a lipstick scent, this is it. Lipstick Rose is the quintessential lipstick. It is, as a man smelling this, Lipstick Rose is, if you like Thomas de Monaco Raw Gold, and you like that lipstick smell, I would urge you to check out Lipstick Rose. Don't worry about it being marketed towards women. There is an element of sweetness here as well. But my God, that lipstick note is just absolutely perfection in Lipstick Rose. It is spot on. It's like every hot girl wearing that deep red lipstick you've ever wanted to kiss in your life in a perfume. It's so alluring. It is so... I mean, right now. Just I sprayed it and already boom, it's right into the meat of the fragrance. Anyways, I didn't want to go off on a tangent, but I did want to spray that because the lipstick note is absolutely spot on, and they don't even list an iris note. So I guess it's possible to make a lipstick accord using other ingredients like amber and musks and stuff like that, rose and vanilla. Anyways, just stunning stuff as lipstick rose. But back to raw gold. So I think that the personally for me, I think that calling the iris lipsticky almost does it a little bit of a disservice, because I think it takes away more from the other aspects of the iris in this scent, which I think are even more interesting. Yes, there is a lipstick accord. Yes, it's there. It's not as much as in Dior Homme, to me, intense. And it's not as, even though Lipstick Rose is sort of a playful scent, I still think that this is almost like masterful, professional grade lipstick creation in a perfume, Lipstick Rose is here in the creation of a lipstick accord, in my opinion. Frederic Malle and Ralph Schwiga, who made Lipstick Rose, absolutely nailed it. And so while I do think Thomas de Monaco's Raw Gold gives off a little bit of that lipsticky accord, I think by characterizing it as a lipstick note, and this is where I think it leans marketing to me, not so much, is there a lipstick note here? Yes, but it really does feel more like marketing, because when you just focus in on that lipstick note and you tell people it's a lipstick note, I feel like they're not going to smell that beautiful vegetal green iris I was talking about in the beginning. They're not going to pick up that chocolatey, salty, beautiful form that it transforms into. And that could be a little bit of the patchouli coming in, but it smells like a chocolatey iris, okay? And it's gorgeous, it's beautiful, and I feel like calling it lipstick accord takes away from that. I think some people just see it as a note and they just completely believe that's what it is. They don't smell with their nose, they smell with their eyes, kind of thing. So anyways, there's that to mention. And finally, in the top, there are lots of notes that I don't really get. So they mentioned coffee and liqueur. I mean, I tried to pick it out over and over again. I couldn't really get it. But what I will say is there is a fragrance that really reminds me of the opening, the part of the opening I really dislike too. And I don't care for this fragrance because it has the same problem as the opening of Thomas de Monaco Raw Gold. And that is 1821 Sweet Tobacco Spirits. So it's 1821 Man-Made is the brand, and the name of the fragrance is Sweet Tobacco Spirits. This fragrance is hyped in Fragcom, was hyped even more in 2015 and 16. They were sending out free care packages. It's actually a brand that is very close to where I reside in Texas. I believe this brand is based in Euless, Texas, if I'm not mistaken. Bedford, Texas, excuse me. They're in Bedford, Texas, which is still very close. And so Sweet Tobacco Spirits is basically like a sweet gourmand with manuka honey and wine and saffron. And now that I'm really thinking about it, it might have been the saffron note that they both share, because there was also saffron in Thomas de Monaco Raw Gold. And if you overdose saffron can come across as being extremely overpowering and sweet. And so this has a little bit of this honeyed saffron and tobacco, which is a very similar couple notes that you'll pick up in Thomas de Monaco Raw Gold. Thomas de Monaco Raw Gold, the note listing says that it is honeyed. It's honey, saffron, and a cigar note. So instead of tobacco, they specify a cigar. But to me, the tobacco accord is basically what you get. And if you look at the color of the juice, it's sort of this honeyed orange juice, right? And that's sort of the smell. I can't stand this stuff. It's way too sweet for me. It's so sweet. And, you know, that's sort of, when I first smelled Thomas DeMonico Raw Gold, the very first time I was like, oh no, this smells like sweet tobacco spirits. I hate sweet tobacco spirits. And then it course corrected. This doesn't course correct, unfortunately, to my nose. Thomas DeMonico Raw Gold does course correct. And it brings in other notes, which I do start to enjoy. I can pick up the leather. They say there's a leather and a suede accord. It just sort of smells like a modern leather accord, if you will, that suede leather. And the patchouli. The patchouli is a big part of this fragrance. They mentioned it specifically, a 20-year dry, you know, patchouli. Definitely it gives this dry, green, sort of smoky, almost earthy, smoky element. Herbal, smoky, spicy, green, earthy element that is beautiful into the dry down. Now that this has been on my skin for 2.5 hours or so, I'm starting to appreciate it more and more and more. But the problem that this scent really has for me is, do I want to buy a bottle just to spray it and then grit my teeth waiting for the sweetness to go away so I can enjoy it? You shouldn't have to do that. You know, you should enjoy the fragrance all the way through, in my opinion. And so what I will tell you is, in the top, even though I don't get the, let's say, liqueur coffee note that they say, if there was such a thing as a buttery honey liqueur, you could say that there is a little bit of that smell. But mostly the top reminds me of 1821 man-made tobacco, which sort of bothered me. And imagine a cigar sort of dipped in like this liqueured wine. Maybe that's a good analogy for the opening of Thomas DeMonico Raw Gold, because I did get the tobacco right away. Even though it's a base note, the tobacco comes through, and it feels, it does feel like you're smelling sort of a thick, heady cigar, and slightly dry. So you have dry patchouli and dry tobacco in the scent, and mixing with that honey and that lipsticky iris, that cosmetic iris that has so many other facets that I think you really need to pay close attention to. Then they've added that civet, and the civet adds the very slightest amount of animalic. It's almost like they brought in Roja Dove just to put the tiniest amount of civet in, because that's what he does in his scents. I feel like, you know, it lists civet and castoreum, and it's always just the teeniest, tiniest amount just to add character. And that's the way the civet is used here. If you're somebody who is put off by very animalic scents, don't worry. Thomas DeMonico Raw Gold is not an animalic bomb or anything like that. It's more of a sweet, you know, resinous-y like scent. Now, they mention a Papanax. And the Papanax brings a little bit of warmth. This is a very big fragrance. This is a huge fragrance. Even though they say there's only 60 ingredients or whatever, I forgot what they said in here. But it's a big fragrance. It lasts a long, long time on my skin anyways. And it projects a lot as well. So most people probably think of this for the wintry, and because of that Papanax note adds a little bit of warmth to the composition. But man, I just wish I could, you know, like if you ranked what the most important or most notes that present themselves to the nose, sweet is like number one. And I wish I could just, almost like a video game, take that sweet and just tone it, push it closer to the other side of the ledger. It's okay to have some sweetness, but when it's like the number one thing, it's really tough on me. So this is a fragrance that, you know, to me anyways, it's tough to call. It's really almost like a fielder's choice. It could go one way or another, but I'm probably going to put it into the pass file just because of how sweet it is. If they could just tone it down, I think they would have a real winner on their hands. in my opinion. I know a lot of people love this. This is just one man's opinion. That's all this is. So if you've smelled Thomas de Monaco Raw Gold, do leave a comment. To those of you who have been waiting for this, here you go. I hope you've enjoyed it. Hope you think that I've done it justice. It's a good fragrance. I just don't know if it's for me. So let me know what you think. Leave a comment below. I love seeing your faces in the comments. I learned so much from you guys. Honestly, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't get to try stuff like this. So thanks to the folks who sent this my way, and for everyone who has supported me. It's been an absolute pleasure, as always, doing these videos for you guys. So cheers, and I'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.